Sup, you beautiful bastards? Hope you're having a fantastic Monday. Welcome back to the DeFranco Show, and let's just jump into it. And the first thing we're going to talk about today is this whole Elle Darby White Moose Cafe situation. There were just so many requests to cover this story from over the weekend, so let's break it down. You have Elle Darby. She's a 22-year-old British beauty blogger. She reportedly reaches out to the Charvel Lodge in Dublin, Ireland with an email asking for free accommodation. Then the owner of the lodge and White Moose Cafe, Paul Stenson, posts that email to Facebook writing, "Dear social media influencer, I know your name, but apparently it's not important to use name. Thank you for your email looking for free accommodation in return for exposure. It takes a lot of balls to send an email like that, if not much self-respect and dignity. If I let you stay here in return for a feature in your video, who is going to pay the staff who look after you? Who's to pay the housekeepers who clean your room?" The questions continue. He then mentions that they have a social media following as well, adding, "In future, I'd advise you to offer to pay your way like everyone else. And if the hotel in question believes your coverage will help them, maybe they'll give you a complimentary upgrade to a suite. This would show more self-respect on your part, and let's face it, it would be less embarrassing for you. P.S. The answer is no." And like I said, in that post, he included Elle Darby's email. He had some of the information blacked out. It was a very half-assed blacking out of the name, so if your monitor was bright enough, you could just see the name. Now, I don't know if he did it intentionally or not, but either way, the hate started going towards Elle Darby. It looks like she's been deleting comments, disabling comments here and there on social media, but the hate was still getting through. People calling her ugly scum, total elite. Elle Darby then responds to the criticism in a video called "I Was Exposed, So Embarrassing."
"I was angry, I was sad, I was upset, I was anxious, I was embarrassed, I felt humiliated. I feel so disgusting having to say this. I feel so vile and it makes me kind of feel sick. But as a 22-year-old girl who's running her own business from her home, I don't feel like I did anything wrong in that. All because I had gone to this certain hotel and emailed them politely, offering them a business idea, a business proposal, a collaboration idea, with nothing but the purest intentions. They then decided to take that email, which I had written to them in confidentiality, and blast it over their social media pages with nothing but malicious intent. I want to speak to anybody out there right now who wants to start a blog, who wants to start a YouTube, who wants to do something with their life that is gonna make them happy. Do not let these kind of people bring you down. That man's Facebook page is full of roasting people, and you know what? It's gonna come back around to him. It's gonna come back around to him.
So then after that video went up, the hotel started facing backlash. People saying it was very unprofessional, disgusting that they would do such a thing. And in response to this, Paul Stenson wrote a series of posts. Official apology to bloggers. "Dear bloggers, I am so sorry that I've waited until now to mobilize you in numbers, and I am kicking myself that I didn't think about you before now. If each one of you is pissed off and you all have your individual following, no matter how small, there is a fair chance that you will all speak badly to your followers about us, which will result in a huge number of people hearing about our brand collectively. I am so sorry that I didn't think of you guys until now. You are a much more lucrative group of people to piss off than the vegans and the gluten intolerant combined." The next day, following it up with, "Following the backlash received after asking an unidentified blogger to pay for a hotel room, I have taken the decision to ban all bloggers from our hotel and cafe. The sense of entitlement is just too strong in the blogging community, and the nastiness, hissy fits, and general hate displayed after one of your members was not granted a request for a freebie is giving your whole industry a bad name." The girl in question was never identified in my original post, but she herself went on to create a video explaining how she was exposed with malicious intent for asking for a freebie. This kind of victimization is very prevalent in the blogging industry and is in keeping with their general modus operandi of wanting everything for nothing. If any of you attempt to enter our premises from now on, you will be ejected. P.S. Perhaps if you went out and got real jobs, you'd be able to pay for goods and services like everybody else. Just a thought. Later, adding, "Thank you, bloggers. I'd just like to say a huge thanks to all the bloggers for their hard work over the past 2 days. The publicity you've given us is absolutely priceless. It will be featured in my book, How to Get Worldwide Publicity Without Spending a Cent. I'm even thinking of dedicating a full chapter to you guys, including screenshots of some of your most entertaining public tweets, Facebook posts, and negative reviews. P.S. You're still barred." Then Paul Stenson kept milking this for every cent it was worth, sharing this invoice for around 5 million euros that he says he plans to send to Elle. This for her being featured in 114 articles across 20 countries with a potential reach of 450 million people. He then, because as we've learned by this point, Paul Stenson is a top-tier troll, conducted his own fake press conference where he sarcastically apologized but doesn't at all.
"We at the White Moose and Charvel Lodge feel very ashamed and so silly that we didn't see how lucky we were to have been approached by a godlike influencer to collab and boost our sales universally. We should have just bent over and taken that influence straight to the bank.
And that's where we are right now. And here's what I'll say. Paul Stenson, obviously a top-tier troll, seemingly kind of an asshole, but I must applaud him. I haven't seen this level of well-executed outrage marketing since probably early Tucker Max. It's exactly what Paul Stenson is saying. It's so much free publicity. I mean, this isn't the first time he's done something like this. He's gone after vegans, gluten-free people in the past. It's just plainly put media manipulating marketing. And that's, there are a bunch of people expecting me to bash Elle Darby. No, I mean, she is kind of a victim here. She made a very polite business inquiry that is very common for someone in her position. She wanted to stay there for 5 days. $66 a day is the normal cost. Actual cost for the hotel is obviously going to be lower. Let's just say that it's a cost of $200 to $300 for Paul. For that, she's saying she'd promote that place in her videos that are getting between 30 to 80,000 views per video, and in pictures and stories for her less than 100,000 people on Instagram. As easy as it is to hate on someone wanting something for free because it makes it feel like they have an air of I'm better than everyone else, depending on the demo that's watching her video, that's actually a pretty great value. And more advertising agencies are realizing they want people like Elle, not because they reach this massive audience, but because they hit a decent number of people already and they will just take low end free stuff, and that just ends up being a fraction of what the larger guys would charge. And as far as Paul Stenson can act like he didn't release her name, but come on. You either released her name on purpose or you need to Google what opacity is. As far as her response, yes, she made the situation a lot bigger. And as far as vloggers and bloggers requesting stuff for free, I have a love it and hate it mentality. It is an incredibly common ask, especially from lower end YouTubers, Instagram famous people. And as a business, as long as you're working with an influencer that actually understands how to make sure that people use you in the future, it's a great value. And the only reason I wouldn't pursue a deal like this is I'd be lowering my own value. And that's not a dick thing to say. If you go to Charleville Lodge on TripAdvisor, it says it's $66 a night. So let's say you stayed the weekend. You essentially sold an ad spot for $132. And so overall, if White Moose Cafe, Charleville Lodge didn't have a Paul Stenson, this would have been a great deal. But thanks to the way Paul Stenson handled this situation, he got so much more value from this. And just from the marketing side, I'm incredibly impressed. But all of that said, I do want to pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts around this story? Who's in the right? Who's in the wrong? What are your thoughts on influencers trying to get stuff for free? Let me know in those comments down below. Then the most idiotic viewer requested story today involves Kylie Jenner. This thanks to people freaking out on the internet thanks to headlines like Kylie Jenner posed for Calvin Klein with her stomach covered and people are losing it. There have been rumors for a while that Kylie Jenner is pregnant. For some reason, people really care. And as part of a Calvin Klein campaign, the Kardashian-Jenner clan taking pictures solo, together. And people notice that in every picture with Kylie Jenner, she has her stomach covered in some way. And my question is, why do you care? When I was younger, I thought I didn't like the Kardashians, but what I realized over time is that I just actually didn't like the fandom around the Kardashians. I mean, if anything, over time, I've grown to greatly respect what the Kardashians have been able to do, taking this moment in time, being Paris Hilton's friend, a sex tape, somehow turn it into this multi-million-dollar empire. Having people still care after all these years. That's a legitimate skill. So when I look at all these photos, I can't bash the Kardashians for it, and you ultimately have one of two realities. One, she's pregnant, and just by hiding the stomach, they know this is going to create more publicity. Or two, she's using the rumors around her to troll fans and gain publicity. Either way, it doesn't matter. Kardashian-Jenners win again. Just looking at all these Twitter people like, Kylie, I know your secret. What is the secret? They've been manipulated into being over-invested in this family that's main goal is to sell you clothes and lip kits? Good. But from that, I want to share some stuff I love today and Today in Awesome. And the first bit of awesome is something I wanted to share Friday, but Friday shows don't normally have a TIA section, and that is the Super Troopers 2 trailer. After they raised money for the sequel, it kind of just fell off my radar, but to now see a trailer, I am so excited. Then if you need some cute awesome, we have a little Lucas the Spider. We also got a lot of new footage for Ready Player One. It starts off with a lot of Spielberg love, but then you get to see a lot more of the universe for Ready Player One. We then got a new trailer for A Wrinkle in Time, which looks fantastic. Then we got the awesome that is a trailer for Poppy's new YouTube Red series that looks batshit crazy. And if you are a fan of Poppy, I'm sure you would have it no other way. And if you want to see the full versions of everything I just shared, the secret link of the day, anything at all, links as always are in the description down below. And then let's talk about this horrible story coming out of Australia. Footage emerged last week of this horrific attack that occurred in Victoria, Australia. The victim in the video is reportedly an intellectually disabled 17-year-old girl. It appears that she was lured to a park by 3 other girls, 2 15, 1 12 years old. Reportedly, the victim thought she was going to meet up her boyfriend, but when she got there, the 3 girls just beat her. And they recorded the entire thing and posted it to Facebook, and it is truly horrific. They're kicking, beating, torturing this poor girl. I cannot show most of the footage. At one point, they force her to inhale shattered glass. They burn her hands on a hot barbecue. They kick her in the face, the upper body. They smash her head against a table over and over. And this beating, this torture, it lasted for around 2.5 hours. And then they just leave this girl beaten in the park. This was so horrible, even law enforcement was shocked shocked by it.
The footage is pretty graphic, and a lot of senior police officers here say it's one of the worst assaults they've seen in some 30 years or so.
Now, luckily, the victim was eventually taken to a hospital. Also, very luckily, if you think about it, these idiots filmed this attack. And because they uploaded this video, they uploaded the evidence against themselves. It became a local news story, then it blew up internationally. They made it incredibly easy for themselves to get identified, found, and arrested. The 12-year-old was let out on bail, but the two 15-year-olds are being held. All three of them have been charged with assault and robbery. And just looking at these even blurred photos of the victim, you can see what kind of damage she received. And as far as the potential punishment for these crimes, in Victoria, all three can be charged as adults, which means they could all be facing up to 20 years in prison for the assault charge. The 12-year-old potentially here could be charged as a minor, so that would be 2 years max in a facility, and up to 15 years for the robbery charge. And my personal view on these punishments is good. The more the better. Young people can make mistakes, but this is not a mistake. This is an attack. I don't care if you're 12, 15, 38. You know what happened in that video was so wrong. There's no didn't know better. These kids need a reset button. But, of course, this is the Philip DeFranco Show. It's a story, my opinion, and then I'll pass the question off to you. In a story like this, do you personally think that the age matters and thus that you should get a lighter sentence? Or no, you think it's pretty damn clear they should be punished as harshly as possible? I'd love to know your thoughts. And then let's talk about the government shutdown, which might actually be over by the time you're watching this video. We talked about it Friday, how it was incredibly unlikely that the US Senate was going to pass any sort of budget. It looked like the government was going to shut down, and it did. Thursday, we saw the House pass a stopgap spending bill, votes 230 to 197. This to continue funding until February 16th, extend CHIP funding for 6 years. But on Friday night, the stopgap bill failed in the Senate by a vote of 50 to 49. They needed 64 to pass, but they just didn't have the numbers. And the vote was relatively down party lines, except for 9 exceptions. 5 Democrats voted yes, 4 Republicans voted no. McConnell also voting against the bill for procedural reasons so that he could reintroduce it if necessary. And then for most of the weekend, while the Senate was talking to one another, they were also very much playing the blame game publicly. Many Republicans now pointing to the Democrats saying, look, they are the party of obstruction. They're shutting down the government because they're not getting what they want on DACA or on the wall. The White House even changed their voicemail message to this.
Thank you for calling the White House. Unfortunately, we cannot answer your call today because congressional Democrats are holding government funding, including funding for our troops and other national security priorities, hostage to an unrelated immigration debate. Due to this obstruction, the government is shut down.
But on the other end, you had a lot of people pointing to Trump and Republicans calling this the Trump shutdown. People saying it shouldn't be that hard to negotiate. You have control of the White House, the Senate. People saying you can't blame the Democrats for having this stance here because Donald Trump himself is saying, well, you're not going to get what you want on DACA unless I get my wall. Right, what we're seeing in general are negotiations of people holding on to something and saying, I'll trade you. So let's not act like anyone has the high road here. Also part of this blame game, we've seen the military brought into this. One of the main points we've heard out of most Republican mouths is that the Democrats aren't just holding the economy hostage, but they're holding our military hostage. During a shutdown, essential military is still working, but they're not getting paid. But on that note, we saw Dem Senator Claire McCaskill go on the floor and introduce a measure that would make it so military service members would receive their pay during the federal government shutdown. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell objected to that measure. And when people saw that objection, many people were saying, oh, see, McConnell's evil. But to those arguments, I would say when you hear his objection, there's a little more nuance to it.
We passed similar legislation during the government shutdown back in 2013. My hope is that we can restore funding for the entire government before this becomes necessary. I'm going to object for tonight, but we'll discuss again tomorrow. Therefore, I object.
His argument seems to be, let's try and negotiate the whole thing out before you just start picking and choosing things. I personally don't agree with that choice. I feel like our armed forces should be insulated from stupid political bullshit. I think this is another example of people on both sides using our military as pawns. I mean, generally, you hear a lot out of Washington about our troops this and troops that, but seeing how veterans are treated, you know where a lot of them stand. But from a negotiating standpoint, from a perception standpoint, I get why he did that. But all of that brought us to today, the third official day of the government shutdown. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell standing on the Senate floor making a promise.
Should these issues not be resolved by the time the funding bill before us expires on February 8th, so long as the government remains open, it would be my intention to take up legislation here in the Senate that would address DACA, border security, and related issues, as well as disaster relief, defense funding, health care, and other important matters.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer then speaking.
We will vote today to reopen the government to continue negotiating a global agreement with the commitment that if an agreement isn't reached by February the 8th, the Senate will immediately proceed to consideration of legislation dealing with DACA. The process will be neutral and fair to all sides.
And by a vote of 81 to 18, the Senate voted to reopen the government and fund it until February 8th. So kicking that can a little down the road, now the House just has to vote for it and Trump has to sign it. And so from now till February 8th, we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens. Can this current Congress and White House find a middle ground? Maybe I'm a cynic, but I truly don't believe so. But that said, I'll pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts around this whole situation? Do you think the Democrats are being reasonable or they're giving in? Do you think Republicans and or Trump are being ridiculous, or no, you like where they're at? Let me know what you're thinking and why in those comments down below. And that's where I'm going to end today's show. And remember, if you liked this video, you like what I try and do on this channel, hit that like button. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you don't miss these daily videos, which actually, if you did miss the last Philip DeFranco show, you want to catch up, click or tap right there to watch that. Or if you want to watch something a little bit lighter, we posted a new behind the scenes vlog today. But that said, of course, as always, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you tomorrow.